House, Panel-Vindicators, Timekeeper. My name is Ijoma Miracle from Ever Prestigious Trinity Nursery and Primary School, Onitsha. We are all here to witness a beach parliamentary debate on the topic. This House will grant affirmative action for women joining political parties. As usual, we have two seats, which are team proposition from the school Ever Prestigious Trinity Nursery and Primary School, Onitsha, and team opposition from Echeobi Primary School, Neni. At my right hand side, we have the team proposition. The lead speaker as the first speaker as the second speaker as. Thanks. At my left hand side, we have the team opposition. The lead speaker as the first speaker as the second speaker as. Now, I'll call on the timekeeper to tell us the rules governing today's debate.
Thank you, Jumojoto, for giving me a chance to spell out the time for this debate. It is going to be 6 minutes debate for each speaker, 3 minutes for a parent speech. 1 minute into the debate, I will clap my hands, indicating that time for points of information has started. 5 minutes into the debate, I will clap again, indicating that time for points of information has elapsed. In the 6 minutes, another clap. Continue clapping my hands, indicating that time for information has exhausted. Thanks.
Thanks for letting us on the rules governing today's debate. Without wasting much of your time, as it is said, experience is knowledge and knowledge is power. With this, I call on the lead speaker from team proposition.
On proposition today, we see a political status quo where less than 10% of people in the Nigerian federal legislature are women, and no state out of the day existing federation currently has a female governor, and this is seen in most of the country's other political institutions. On proposition today, we notice that one of the reasons why the rate of inequality in the ranks of political leadership selling us in our society is due to a high level of political apathy among women and underrepresentation in political parties which has issues in the position of women as unequal with men. Because of this, we will grant affirmative action for women joining the political parties. Affirmative actions refer to a set of policies and practices that within a government organization seeking to include a particular group based in gender, race, sexuality, creed and nationality areas in which they are underrepresented, such as education, employment and politics. Panel, over the years, we have introduced lots of policy to mitigate the severe inequalities in political leadership, but it seems that none of these policies have solved the problem, because no matter what we do, it seems as if women will continue to be looked down upon as a second class and not worthy of political leadership, even when they are well qualified. This is so as women, as a reasonable margin, have a weaker bargaining power of minority compared to men. Hence, strict government-backed policy legislation like this of affirmative actions is the only viable solution. We are going to substantiate the sense in today's debate with 5 major lines of argument. As lead speaker, we look at the legitimacy of our policy under 2 levels of analysis. My first, and also show you how policy is important in today's debate. My first important speaker will discuss the case of preparation and also talk about the need to pursue equality in political leadership. My second important speaker will run into an impact analysis where comparatively showing you where our case is the best. We will do all this while engaging side opposition on their own case. As government, we intend to set a quota system of compulsory 45% female membership and of compulsory 45% female. As government, we intend to set a quota system of compulsory 45% female membership for major political parties, because these major parties are more likely to support ideologies and policies cutting across the interests of both men and men. We will mandate all major political parties to keep record with the Independent National Electoral Commission, and these records will include the number of registered party members and number of women registered. This process will determine which parties have qualified for electability and register our policy as a party and will not be eligible to field any candidate for any election at any level. On my second level of analysis on the argument of legitimacy, on my first level of argument on the argument of legitimacy, I will show you I will be discussing this argument under 2 levels of analysis. First, on the pluralitarian view of the principle of social change. Any debate on women women's rights is a debate on social change, which aims to topple the patriarchy and establish a more just and equal society. Social change has two schools of thought. One, of which is the pluralitarian view. This view holds that the government is right and has a duty to go against the interests of majority in order to fight for the protection of minority interests, which in this case are women. With this principle, it means that any argument coming from said opposition saying that our government is unjustly imposing policies is defeated on arrival. May I have it?
You said that women should be allowed in politics. What will happen when a man and his wife become political opponents?
I'll answer in the course of my speech. As government, we notice that women are not well represented in politics, which is very pivotal in running a country. We on proposition are ready to institute these strict checks on political parties and ensure that women who comprise the total population of the country are well represented. We are willing to interfere with the rights of freedom of association, especially when this right directly opposes more on the humanitarian and significant rights when about 50% of Nigeria participating in democracy. Therefore, it is legitimate for us to grant affirmative action for women during the political practice in order to pursue the interests of women who have been subdued for ages. On my school level of analysis on the argument of legitimacy, I will show you how democracy weighs in our favor in today's debate, and hence legitimizing our policy. Opposition may argue that democracy supports the free organization of political parties and that democracy supports government intervention in the affairs of political parties. They may argue that it's only democratic for people who share similar interests to join political parties out of their own free will, and hence our policy is bad for democracy. Panel, first of all, we'll be forcing women to join political parties against their own free will. We're just creating space for them in places they would love to be, and we're making it possible for them to join out of their own will. Secondly, where is the significance of democracy when about 50% of the populace are severely underrepresented? Where is democracy where women who represent about half of the populace and men control up to 90% of political parties? This is highly outrageous, undemocratic, and unacceptable. Because democracy is not what we have in status quo, and because our policy is the only way to regenerate democracy for all is possible, our policy is legitimate and our stance is noble. With my second line of argument, I'll be showing you why our case is important in today's debate. To do this, I'll be answering two very consequential questions. One, why do political parties matter? And two, why does women participation matter? On my first question, it is the practice that political parties are the only legitimate body in society to feed any candidate into positions of power. These parties enjoy the support of the millions of supporters who rally behind them in the pool during election. What does this signify? It means that any candidate who participates in an election without any political party is less likely to win any offices or even be eligible to contest in the first place. This means that political parties are the launchpad of political positions in our country. Yes, if you want more women in elective government positions, then we have to have more women in political parties and we have to have enough men in these parties, so they won't just be like a minority whose voices won't be heard, which is why we are introducing a base 45% reserve membership for women. On my second question, on why does women participation matter? Panel, this has clearer answer. For years, women's female participation has been at the minimum, and the effect is that we have a very low number of women in elective government positions. Women's participation matter because that is the only way we have enough men in power, and that is the only way equitable representation of all citizens can be achieved. To bring this down, imagine a political party system dominated by men. What are the chances that women will win primaries to succeed as a party candidate? What are the chances that women will emerge a political system where women dominate? You see why you have a very low number of women in elective government positions. On this grounds, this has to grant affirmative action for women joining the political parties. In conclusion, panel, we challenge opposition to come up and give us credible analysis on why they oppose this motion, as well as a more workable and efficient alternative to our policy in solving the problem with our status quo. Failure to do this means that they cannot win this debate. I succeeded in justifying our stance with two arguments. First, I talk about the argument of legitimacy of our policy, and I also showed you why our policy is important in today's debate using two very consequential questions. On this grounds, I am proud to propose.
Thank you, lead speaker, for your wonderful speech. I call on the time for the total of the time you spent.
She spent 7 minutes 20 seconds.
before we saying in this quote, if a man enter his purse into his nest, no one can take it from him. With this, I call on the lead speaker from team opposition.
My name is Soka Fonyeka. I am an honorable representative of Echeobi Primary School, Neni, from Onitsha Local Government Education Authority, and the lead speaker of this debate. Politics is associated with governance of country or area, especially the debate between parties having power. The moderator, panel of adjudicators, the timekeeper, my co-debaters, my friends in arguments, and the general house. Good day to you all. As the lead speaker of this debate, I will diligently distribute our duties in this manner. I will deliver opposition's clarifications, rebut the first proposition substantive arguments, and deliver my own substantive arguments. My first supporting speaker will reaffirm my stand and defend the lead speaker opposition's substantive arguments opposing the motion, while the second supporting speaker will rebut the proposition argument and provide quick summary of opposition's case. It doesn't take extraordinary person to be doing extraordinary things. It takes one person to stand up and really say no. With this, I'm proud to oppose the motion which the lead speaker team proposition has proposed. This house will grant affirmative actions for women joining political parties. The general house. It is said that political participation is the key ingredient of every political system, be it tradition or modern, totalitarian or democratic. This means that in every political party, there must be somebody in a position to take political decisions, like appointment and removal of officials from time to time. Whether the House will grant affirmative actions for women joining political parties depends on the factors prevalent in the society, which the lead speaker team proposition failed to consider before proposing. The team proposition do not look critically into the intricacies before coming out here to propose. I want the team proposition to understand that politics is not child's play, and that politics is not about convincing those who are currently in power itself. It's about changing the very face of power. Need I inform the team proposition that there are factors which can hinder women participation in politics. There are factors such as sex, which is gender, financial status, level of education, political and economic experience, religion and ethnicity, and the rest of them. My first line of argument is education of women. The lead speaker from the proposition side do not think appropriately before coming out here to propose. The general house, you have seen why I said that the team proposition do not think appropriately before coming out here to propose. The lead speaker fails to understand that there are not all women have acquired adequate political education, and so they know nothing or less about politics in general. Although in Nigeria, the only specification given to those in contesting for any political position in the senior secondary certificate examination, which is SSCE. But not every woman have acquired adequate political degree or political knowledge. Hence, they are not conversant in political knowledge or orientation enabled in participation. The general house, you have seen why I said that the team proposition do not think appropriately before bringing up this motion. Therefore, this motion will not stand because knowledge is power. Second is culture, which is an ethos issue. In Nigeria, in the traditional society, women are made to stay out of politics in a traditional Nigerian society. Politics is believed to be the duty of the man, since he is the head participating in politics. I will get back to you later. In the politics automatically bequeath one with power. It is generally accepted that only men be allowed to wield such political power. Women have reduced attention to family matters because this is because they have big roles to play in the family as mothers and custodian or character. The team propositions consider the issue of childbearing before bringing up this motion. I'll get back to you later. The model of politics is even bigger than family matters. That will be impossible for a woman to manage these two aspects effectively. It is necessary for women to answer their natural calls to family than abandoning their responsibilities to political parties. My next analytical question is whether the lead speaker considered the issue of childbearing before proposing this motion. The status should remind the general house the responsibilities and the duties faced by women. A woman in politics cannot manage pregnancy or nursing a baby. Why politics rail, campaigns, decisions, movements, and activities are going on. I therefore plead with the chair and the general house that politics is not meant for women and that politics is not child's play. Hence, this motion should not stand. I rest my case.
There is fire in the mountain. It is said when two elephants fight, the grass suffers. With this, Akala the type was to tell of the time he spent.
He spent 6 minutes, 2 seconds.
Akala the first spot speaker to clear the floor.
Panel, we've put aside our motion to give us credible arguments backed up by intelligent analysis of why you put this motion. We expected them to come up and give us a more workable and more efficient alternative to policy in this debate. In order to solve the problem already noted in this debate, but it failed to do this, now I'll show you how. The list of say opposition got up to tell us that women don't have the knowledge to control the affairs of political leadership. We don't agree with that. Panel, permit me to ask some question. How can you say that women don't have knowledge? Why women are not given opportunities in the political system? Where some of them like Professor Dora Kunili, Okojiwala, and so on, and they handled their appointment very well. Having done this, I believe we're in today's debate. Let's go open again in this debate. She started by identifying the problem with the status quo, and why option have failed, national government policy is the only viable solution. To this, side option have failed to give an alternative. Therefore, they are losing. Let's come on to state what our models look like. What she told you, how we plan to execute our policy in this debate. And to this, side opposition offered no response. She went on to offer so many conspiracy arguments in the first 4 stars. And her first argument on legitimacy of our policies, she discourages around 2 levels of analysis. Firstly, he talked about the polarization view of the presence of social change. What he told you that it is justified to implement a policy because government has the duty to go against majority interests in order to pursue the interests of the minority, in this case, be women. To this, we got no credible response. On a second analysis, she discussed how democracy weighs in favor in this debate. What she questioned the significance of a democracy, which ignores the representation of up to half of the population of a country. She told you these are policies for some more democratic ideals, and to this, we received no response. She proceeded to give a second argument on how policy is important. It would be weird in that one argument, as important as this, we also got no response from opposition. Under that argument, she asked her 2 questions. First, why do political parties matter? Here, she showed you how political parties are indispensable in contesting for elected offices in the country. And because of this, they are ultimately important in securing space for women in government. The second question was, why does women participation matter? Under this, she showed you how many parties we always tend to elect male candidates, and this prevents women from ever getting viable chances to be elected. She showed you how mass participation in large number will solve this problem and push for a more equitable representation of all citizens, both male and female. In the absence of opposition to this mind-blowing argument, we believe that our case is still very strong and that opposition agrees with us. As the first supporting speaker of said proposition, I'll be discussing two equally important arguments. First, on the case of reparation, and second, on the need to pursue equality in the political sphere. Moving to my first line of argument on the case of reparation. Madam Chair, reparation is a form of government policy geared towards compensating certain groups or groups in society after historical denial, wrongs, harms, injustice, and so on which they must have suffered. The principle of reparation is very important, and as well, a rather emotional component of the government policy. It aims at compensating marginalized or discriminated groups. This principle also aims to instill possibilities of forgiveness of the government and society in these groups of people for wrongs done against them. Reparation can work in different ways, including the use of government-backed representative policy to bring up the interests of these groups. How does the principle of reparation affect this debate? Today, we are arguing for equal participation of men and women in government. We introduce a policy of affirmative action, and we believe that apart from the fact that we are justified to use this means, for the fact that it will serve as a means of paying reparation for women for past wrongs, discrimination, denial, and relegation of second-class citizens compared to men. Our policy is right in this debate and to stand. For instance, all over the world, women are faced severe inequalities and discrimination just for being women. These include domestic violence, acts of misogyny and femicide, denial of opportunities, and above all, denial of government position and political power. All of these are minimal atrocities were done by society to women, and today we call for reparation. Granting affirmative action to these women joining political parties will not forgive history overnight, but we believe there is a step forward in the right direction. This argument is completely undeniable because anyone who opposes reparation to be paid to women is either inhumane and misogynist. As such a person cannot win a debate on gender equality. On the other hand, anyone in support of reparation to be paid to women is considerate, humane, and mindful of equality. Such a person will also support affirmative action, and such a person can and should win the debate on these grounds. We would not love to label opposition as inhuman, insensitive for women's interests, and misogynistic, but the truth is that it is what they are, and they shouldn't win this debate on these grounds. This helps grant affirmative actions for women joining political parties. Moving to my second line of argument on the need to pursue equality in the political leadership. The House will bring the clamoring for representation in politics if it were not needful. So I propose to recognize above all things that politics shapes government and government shapes society. Politics, when played fairly, shapes a good government, and a good government shapes society for the better. There is no better society without the equality of men and women. There is no fair politics without the equal participation of men and women, and there can never be a good government without the equal representation of men and women. It's simple. A political system dominated by men will always shape a government dominated by men, which will in turn make policies that will shape society to be dominated by men without consideration of human rights and interests. Without consideration of human rights and interests. This argument is pure logic and it is undeniable. For years, women have no participation and representation in politics and government and by extension society. This is why it's necessary that we pursue equality in the political leadership, because politics shapes society, and what we make a polity determines what a society becomes. You cannot work on a farm containing milk, cassava, and yam, and just pick up cassava as the only representation of what the entire farm has. Likewise, you cannot pick just men to govern and represent the society where there are men and women. On these grounds, we believe that it's very needful to pursue equality in the political leadership. And because of this, these cells must grant affirmative actions for women joining political parties. What have I sincerely telling you? Panel, I first discussed the case, principle of preparation, where I showed you what women need to be compensated to pass from and how our policy helps us do that. Secondly, I showed you why there is a need to pursue equality in the political leadership, and hence, why our policy must go through. On these grounds, let the motion stand. Thanks.
Wow. The ground is getting even hotter. I can't believe my ears. I cannot thank you for the total of the time she spent.
She spent 6 minutes 58 seconds.
I call on the first spot speaker from team opposition.
I am Igbo Zioma, a respected representative of Echeobi Primary School in Neni. The moderator.
panel of adjudicators, the timekeeper, and the general. Good morning to you all. I stand to reaffirm the stand of my speaker opposing and to deliver my side of argument opposing the motion on ground. My speaker have rightly stated the front on the side of propositions in why this motion should not stand. I therefore join with my speaker to inform the General House the reason in which the team proposition have not considered up to this moment that education is power and politics requires power. You cannot engage one in battle without being armed. Hence, the Igbo adage, They should have thought of empowering women through education and not politics. The General House. The team proposition failed to understand that women are forced to stay at home and do domestic chores because they are not educated and cannot be allowed to do. Apart from being informed of political knowledge and orientation, women naturally perceive themselves to be less capable. It is natural for them to be less capable and unequal to tasks. They do not have what it takes to change the face of power itself. Women are easily erased because they lack confidence. Men have the power and confidence to participate in politics, which women do not have. They also need to remind the team proposition that it is not power that corrupts, but fear. Women are always afraid of everything, especially the unknown. This point to my argument that women always look for support to do well. Politics require a bold step and hand to face all challenges in any possible way. Hence, my argument to win this case. My next part of analysis is the weak nature of women. It is incontestable about the weak nature of women. The politics require a strong, energetic, spirit-filled man to battle with his decade. May I have your POI?
Are you in any way just refer to this honorable house that there is no position that women can handle?
The General House. I know where the team proposition are driving to, but I still maintain my stand that women should not be allowed in politics. The team proposition have critically analyzed this motion to highlight the point which the team proposition failed to buttress. The General House. The team opposition have also looked into this motion and they saw on the state of women and therefore postulate that politics is a dirty game. This implies various reasons in mind. The reason in which women should not be allowed to rule, and the reason why this motion should not stand. A good example is a married woman with kids will be insulted even by her fellow women if she attends hardly at home to take care of the children, especially when the meeting is held at night. A typical Nigerian man or husband will suspect her of having extramarital affair. His wife will be coming very rare. Tell me, which responsible man with his right senses will allow that? Is it also a gender inequality? When a woman who is supposed to stay at home, take care of the children, prepare meal, and wait for the husband to return, the reverse is down the case. The General House. The General House. Women should be submissive to the man, as stated in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 11 to 15, and I quote, women should learn in quietness and submissive. I not permit a woman to teach or have authority over a man. She must be silent. The General House. The team proposition failed to accept this fact, which I believe that they are aware of this biblical injunction. I will be back to you later. Is it not obvious that women participation in politics? It is not obvious that women participation in politics breed tenders of selfishness, misplacement of women priorities. This gives them opportunity to fly equal feather with the husband. With these points, I believe that I have convinced you that this motion be judged in the favor of team opposition. Thank you.
Thanks first of all, the speaker, for your marvelous speech. I call on the thank you for the son of the time you spent.
She spent 4 minutes 59 seconds.
said in his quote, never stop learning. With this, I call on the second first speaker from Team Proposition.
Panel, gender equality is the unfinished business of the 21st century, and if any side in this debate is dedicated to finishing this business, it is side proposition. Side opposition are proving how unprepared they are for this debate, with a weakest and lot of irrelevant analysis that are failed to impress critical minds. But we are determined to take them at their best and still show why they should completely lose this debate. We are able to identify a chronic societal problem in today's debate. People told you that after decades and decades, since women got the right to vote, they are still not equally represented in the political landscape of our nation. They have been almost silenced in the halls of leadership, and this human injustice is intolerable in the 21st century. To this problem, like every sensible human being, we introduced a solution to grant affirmative action for women joining political parties, which will go a long way in securing women's seats at the leadership table. To this, we get no response from side opposition. We back this up with a strong model and policy on how we are going to implement this. Surprisingly, panel, we saw no response from side opposition. Panel, we say shame to that. Through our lead speaker, we opened up our case with the argument on legitimacy. We will show you how justified our policy is under two major levels of analysis. On our first level of analysis, she gave you the prioritarian view of the principle of social change, where she showed you why government has a duty and is justified to go against the interests of majority to protect minority interests, especially when the minority will be harmed otherwise. On her second level of analysis, she showed you how democracy weighs in our favor and how a democracy that doesn't represent the entire population is not democracy, and hence it will be justified for government to intervene, to act to push for more democratic ideas of equal representation. To this, we get no response from side opposition. Our first supporting speaker opened up with the case of principle of reparation, where she showed you how women deserve compensation for all the wrongs they have suffered in the society. This process of reparation can be achieved with our policy in this debate. To this, we get no response from side opposition. She went on to give you on the argument on the need to pursue equality in society. To this, we get no response from side opposition. Moving to my argument, as the second supporting speaker of side proposition, I'll be discussing the impact analysis of our policy to show you how our policy benefits different stakeholders in this debate. First, by implementing our policy, we'll be reserving spaces for women in the political parties and by extension in leadership. Since political parties are the tickets to contesting and winning elections, securing seats for enough women in these political parties will enhance their participation in policies and by effect open up opportunity for women to enter the government and contribute to their nation. Since women haven't been able over the years to secure position in government or even political parties, government-backed intervention is inevitable, and this policy will pay off greatly. Again, our policy will go a long way in encouraging more women to participate in policies, knowing they now have their own space where men no longer dominate. It is a fact that so many women who've done great things for the country and government wake up every day being discouraged to enter into politics because they are dominated by men. They never get the motivation to run for political office because of this. Panel, it is important to note that all these are talents wasted, ideas wasted because they are never entertained or given a chance. By implementing our policy, women will now have an opportunity to strive in the political space. They are encouraged to run for office because they know they have strong support from political parties that can now boldly represent and campaign for them. This is the only way that we can ensure that the future is in the hands of everyone, both men and women. Again, our policy will filter political parties with enough women membership, which will alter the ideologies and political position of these parties, which will in turn force these parties to support more pro-women policy. For example, a political party dominated by men may not know the importance of granting women paid maternity leave at their workplaces because they are not women to alter their ideas. But when women form up to 45 to 50% of the party members, this will influence their outlook on issues like paid maternity leave at their workplaces because they are women to alter their ideas. There are many other policies benefiting women like equal pay, legal protection from discrimination and harassment, laws to curb domestic violence, and so many more.
Moving on, by implementing our policy, the political landscape of our country will be refined and restructured. The era of seeing long lines of male presidents, vice presidents, male governor, and deputy governor will be over. The era of seeing 90% of the National Assembly being made up of just by men will be over. The era of a patriarchal society will be over to pave way for an equal society that was for everyone. Furthermore, our police will instill strong sense of belonging in women and girls as members of the society. Conversation about political leadership will no longer be for men alone. Women will participate, and it will give young girls a sense of belonging in society. Fair representation means a more just and equal society. Side opposition are forced to engage us on this alternative, which means that we are the only side that cares for gender equality and women. In conclusion, Madam Chair, side proposition is the side that cares about gender equality. It has been proven that side opposition doesn't care. In our world, women are given an opportunity, while in their world, women are denied. In our world, steps towards equality are taken boldly, while the reverse is so in their world. I have succeeded in advancing many significant impacts of our policy on the different stakeholders of this debate. And because of all this has to grant affirmative action for women joining political parties. Vote side proposition.
Wow. The environment is getting even hotter and hotter. I can't believe my ears. With this, I call the title to tell the time he spent. He spent 5 minutes 20 seconds. I call the second speaker from team opposition.
The moderator, acting panel of adjudicators, sign people, my friends in argument and the general house. Good morning to you all. I'm a respected representative of Echeobi Primary School, Neni, from Onitsha local government area. I'm here to support my lead speaker and the first supporting speaker on the motion tended by the proposition side. I will do the job assigned to me by the lead speaker by debating the proposition argument and provide quick summary for opposition case. The team proposition should be informed that the quest for feminism jeopardizes political system. The talk about the equality of women with men is just a concept that has been ranging from time to time. Women are weaker sex and are not as strong as men. Women are subservient to men. Even the Bible made it clear that women should be submissive to men. The team proposition failed to realize that men can't bear to share the same equal right with women when it came to politics. The team proposition considered the fact that women ask attention to family matters. We are all familiar with the saying, anything man can do, women can do it better. But we also fail to understand, and I start to remind the team proposition, that women take their husband's name as soon as they get married. Why can't they divide that case? Yes, can I have a question?
Affirmative action are an international recognized means of representing and encouraging minority groups like women participating in society. Why do you think an opposition to it is wise in this debate?
I'll answer your question later. The first point I would like to tell them is the religious nature of women. Women are too religious. They are more attached to religious belief than men. If women should be allowed in politics, what time would they have as they are influenced by religious dogma, as this will influence their religious decision or even tossed alarm by our pastor? The Holy Bible does not acknowledge women on any occasion. Take for instance, when Jesus fed 5,000 with 5 loaves and 2 fishes, women were excluded. Did that not prove to all, especially the team proposition? Yes, can I have a question?
If you oppose affirmative actions for women joining political parties, what other alternative can you suggest to encourage women's participation in politics?
I'll answer your question later. The Holy Bible does not acknowledge women on any occasion. Take for instance, when Jesus fed 5,000 with 5 loaves and 2 fishes, women were excluded. Did that not prove to all, especially the team proposition, that women were limited to a certain position and a job, including politics? Therefore, this motion, this House will grant affirmative action for women joining political parties would not stand. If
will the House grant affirmative action for women joining political parties when we all know that few women who were involved in politics felt wealthy, both in governorship and House of Assembly? People like Joy Modi, Echeobi, and Neni, to mention but a few. Allow women in politics can cause unbreak because there will be a divided attention of the women, which in a great extent affect our family negatively. And no husband will tolerate that. As the two proposition consider what will happen when a man and his wife become political opponents. The General House, the opposition side, have critically analyzed this motion and came up with the fact that no matter how vicious a woman can be, Nigerian politics is capable of jeopardizing a woman's dignity. Quest for power is capable of making a woman lose her sense of dignity with the view, if you can't beat them, you join them, which has become everyday slang in politics. The Nigerian politics is characterized by violence. It is said to be very violent for those with the heart and mind of soul. Can we stand such violence? The House, we are all aware of some violence that transfer every election season. A woman naturally will not want to get involved in such as she has a lot to lose, health-wise and beauty-wise. There is no way any woman will allow his wife or sister participate in political parties. Think about the poverty and disempowerment in a country like Nigeria. We can conclude that the most empowered gender is the man. Some women are also empowered, but cannot exceed the number of empowered men. And being empowered attracts authority, wealth, etc., and dominance. With all these factors that male species possess, there is a tendency of intimidation springing up, thereby leading to the laying back in political participation. With all these arguments I have tendered, and those from my honorable team, we join out together to oppose the motion. This House will grant affirmative action for women joining political parties, and let's make case.
Wow, this debate got more interesting. I call her the title of the tell of the time she spent. She spent 5 minutes, 2 seconds. Miracle. Ijoma miracle. Miracle. And then let's finish from team opposition.
Thank you, the moderator, for giving me more time to say my reply speech. No matter how vicious a woman can be, Nigeria politics is capable of women dignity. Quest of power is capable of women lose her real sense of dignity for the view of, if you can't beat them, you join them, which can become everyday slogan in politics. The House, if a woman who is pregnant or nursing a baby, how can she conduct or attend series of meetings and attend immediate issue as the case can be? She should be concerned about her children's welfare and not how to rule a heterogeneous country like Nigeria. Women also criticize themselves owing to the fact that they know how difficult it is for some women to take care of the family, someone of political issue. The team opposition have also emphasized that engaging women in politics will cause home break because there will be a divided attention on the part of the women. Therefore, I pose strongly that this House will grant affirmative action for women joining political parties. Thank you.
Any request speeches from team proposition?
Thank you, moderator, for giving me the opportunity to back up my point. Panel, how can you differentiate an unprepared team from a prepared team? The House, it is glaringly clear that team opposition came unprepared for this debate. This is evidence on how the affairs to simply counter or engage a medical which is that government has the duty to go against majority interests and how to pursue the interests of the minority. We get this opposition opposition made POI and they gave us none. And in return, we received no credible response from opposition based on the POI we gave them. Coming to the arguments, panel, some opposition have proven their unpreparedness for this debate by offering us uncooperative analysis. They were unable to prepare any arguments as a result of not understanding the motion. Coming to arguments, panel, we and proposition provided face substantive arguments which side opposition was unable to counter. Firstly, to our lead speaker, she gave the two major consequential arguments which said opposition was unable to counter. On her first argument on legitimacy of her policy, she discussed this under two levels of analysis. Firstly, she talked about the Laurentian view of the principle of social change, where she told you that it is justified to implement a policy. Because government has a duty to go against majority interests in order to pursue the interests of minority. On the second analysis, she discussed how democracy wastes nothing in this debate, where she told you that any democracy which ignores the representation of half of the population of a country is considered non-democratic. She also told you that our policy foster more democratic ideals, and to this, we got no credible response. On a second argument on how important policy is, she told you that by granting affirmative action to those women in joining political parties, we are giving women the opportunity to get represented and contribute in shaping society for everyone, not just for men. And to this, we also received no response. As the first opposing speaker, I gave you two arguments which the opposition was also unable to counter. On my first argument, I discussed on the case of reparation. I showed you why we meant to be compensated passion and how policy help us do that. To this, we also received no response from opposition. On my second argument on the need to pursue equality in the political sphere, where I told you that there is no better society without the equality of men and women. There are no better policies without the equal participation of men and women, and there can be never a good government without the equal representation of men and women. And to this, we also received no credible response from opposition. Our second supporting speaker wanted to give you the impact analysis of a policy and how our policy benefits the different stakeholders in this debate. Where he told you that by implementing a policy, we are reserving enough spaces for women in government. And also, by implementing a policy, the political landscape will be refined and restructured to be less patriarchal and non-humanistic. And to this, we also received no credible response from opposition. Panel, with this, said opposition knew the level of hope preparedness for this debate was at the climax and they shouldn't win this debate. Therefore, this House must grant affirmative actions for women joining political parties. And no matter how much the opposition argued in today's debate, we believe that our case will fall. And for that reason, women proposition should be the winners in today's debate. Thanks.
I'd like to thank people to tell us the time she spent.
She spent 2 minutes 11 seconds.
It is said in every competition there must be only one winner. Thanks.
A form of political apathy among women. So women don't participate in politics, and one of the reasons is because women do not really belong to political parties. Thus, they introduced a solution which is to grant affirmative action for women to join political parties. They also, because this is a policy motion, they introduced a very understandable policy that they're going to set a 45% reserved membership for women in political parties, and they are going to make political parties register with INEC so that they ensure that these parties keep up with this particular policy. They went on to give us arguments about how their case is legitimate under two analyses. They showed us why their case is very important by asking two questions, like why do political parties matter? Because this debate, we are debating gender equality quite all right, but why do political parties matter and why does women's participation matter? So on the beginning of opposition speech, we see side opposition coming up, first of all, failing to attack the policy brought up by side proposition. What they did in this debate, like what I wrote, they generally told us why women are not qualified at all for politics. That is what they did in today's debate. They showed us why women have so many factors hindering them from participating in politics, things like financial status, economic condition, education. But to the issue about factors hindering women, I think side proposition responded to that when they showed us that there are already women participating in politics, and for this reason you cannot say that factors are hindering these women, that what they need is just government-backed legislation, just like they proposed in today's debate. So they brought up arguments about how tradition and culture prevents women from participating in politics and how politics is not meant for women. So I would love to make this comment. When you're debating a motion about gender equality, I don't think it is okay for you to stand up and tell us that women do not deserve representation. Because if that is the case, then then gender equality for this year's team shouldn't be existing. But I think side opposition failed to do that. I think a better perspective that they could have used is arguing why women should participate, but then we are not going to use affirmative action, because there are people that believe that reserving membership for people in political parties is actually unfair. People should be free to join parties whenever they want. So I felt like that was a better perspective they could have come up with. That's my own opinion anyways. So we also see a side, from two sides, we got their reply speeches. We also see a side proposition that understood what reply speech is better. They were able to show us why opposition did not respond to their arguments, what their arguments were like, and why their own arguments were not relevant. That's what they said. But side opposition did not understand the idea of reply speech. So they cut everything short. We saw proposition giving all these arguments about the case of reparation, the need to pursue gender equality, and so many things. So I would like to comment something done by the first supporting speaker. She gave us a logical flow of analysis where she said that she was talking about the case of reparation, that women deserve to be compensated. She listed the reasons why women need to be compensated, and she showed that any person that does not support reparation is inhuman, misogynistic, and what else did you say? So I just want to comment her on that. That was a very fantastic logic we see there. Do you understand? And then she was now able to come down to the issue that now, because side opposition is now the side opposing reparation and affirmative action, they are inhuman, they are misogynistic and should not win the debate. So I will